Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back. This is Springboard at Home. We are on our 15th edition now as the weeks are rolling by. It's August 27th, 2020, as Lane's doing his fist pump over there in the background. We have Brad Fishman back on the line today. He was out in wine country during last week's call. We got to have, as dubbed by Lane, Zach Leno. Zach Fishman, the great, filled in last week. So it was good having him. Want to thank Josh and Jeff again for joining us last week. But Brad, I guess before we jump in, how was wine country, man?
Wine country was wonderful. It was good to get out of the Chicagoland area for a few days. Got to try some great Pinots, and so that makes it all fun. But now it's back to reality. And,
Yeah.
Stuff playing golf this weekend. So, it's the more normal thing compared to wine country.
Well, I feel like it was a little bit of normalcy because I got to see you on Monday night.
I know. We were lucky. We had the Ryan and Ryan. And as Dawn, we were kind of just talking about, we got to go out to a good dinner.
I'm envious.
Yes,
Yeah.
it was nice. A bottle of wine, a couple drinks. All life seems pretty good.
Yeah. Well, thank you, everybody, Thank you for joining. Couple of folks we have on the line. I really love both of these individuals. We have Dawn Lafreeda. She's the largest multi-unit franchisee of Denny's. You've probably seen her on magazine covers or Entrepreneur Elevator Pitch. She's someone I have a tremendous amount of respect for down in San Antonio, Texas. Go Texas. We also have Frank Milner on the line. He's the president of Tutor Doctor. Tremendous respect for Frank. We were just talking before we went live, and I'm used to seeing Frank out on the franchise conference circuit. And I think all of us would love for that to be the reality, but now we're relegated to Zoom. So Frank, thank you very much for spending time with us today here. Before we kick off the dialogue and peel back the onion a little bit, Brad, Lane, and Tony, any top of the house?
Well, as you can see, Lane's background, and as Frank knows, one of probably my favorite conference, well, that and the unconference, my two favorite conference of the year is the Springboard Reboot now, Lane. So why don't you show around there? You can see the satellite because, as everyone knows, we're going virtual. But we're going to be doing stuff dramatically different than a lot of the other virtual conferences, trying to really get people organized and involved and figure out. So I'll let Lane take it from here on that.
Yeah, so we're elated at the response so far. There's been lots of signups. I think the call to action for our conference is to register and reserve your space in one of our relaunch pods. Springboard is known for matching solutions up with the problems people actually have, and we've managed to harvest that out even in a virtual setting. So lots more of that information to come. There's no cost for franchisors, and so while we're putting together these mentor pods,
or franchisees.
Yeah, I was about to say that.
or franchisees, but we're putting together these pods now, and I encourage you to reserve your spot because we may ultimately close it out, and we want to make sure that we can accommodate everybody. So
there's no shortage of problems either, so what's the solve?
One person did say to me that they weren't interested in the mentoring part, and it's like, well, who have you spoken to since March, right? I mean, like, it's your dog, your immediate family. So this is a way to get the franchise family back together and get you on a team with folks that know a little bit more and perhaps about things that you don't know about, and vice versa. We always hope that the folks come as students in the areas they're not captains of industry, and then as mentors and things that they know lots about. And so these are non-topical mentor roundtables, and people are going to come with their own list and have a fantastic group of folks to vet that with and to vet the whole conference with. So that's my update.
Lane, one thing is a lot of people tell us the only reason why some people go to our conference is to get our T-shirts. And
great T-shirt.
That is so excited about it, Frank. I know that you've taken pictures with you wearing it.
I'm always doing it.
Yeah, people get caught in them all the time in their prompted pictures on social media, but we have somehow kindled a love affair between our our concert T-shirts, if you will, and we're going to find a way to get those to people this year.
So it might be a new limited edition Springboard Reboot.
We don't know what color COVID is.
I better reserve mine now. I don't even have one. I'm not that loud.
We'll definitely get you one. But no, and hopefully people in their jogs and runs and dog walks will find a lot of use for this T-shirt. But I don't want to. I appreciate both Dawn and Frank's time here. I'm very grateful. I know that people are. I know that there's lots of been as many as 150 or 160 plays on the archives of these webinars. So we are very grateful, and I can just tell by the number of folks that log in on their own without prompting from us that they're grateful for the information as well. So let me turn it back to Ryan, and you can let her rip, bud.
All right. Well, I'll save the formal introductions, and I've already kind of briefly introduced the folks on the line. Don, we'll start with you. You have a phenomenal story. I love your story. I've read it in magazines. I've heard it multiple times from you, but for the folks in the audience that haven't heard your story, just share a little bit about your background, how you got into franchising, and the journey thus far. Take us back to, I think it's West Texas.
West Texas, thanks. And thanks for having me, you guys. It's always an honor to get to spend some time with you virtually or in person. Well, I have a great American dream story because I started out as a hostess at Denny's when I was 16 years old, and never in my wildest dreams did I ever think I'd be the girl in America who owned the most restaurants. And so I turned tips and savings and credit card money into a little mini empire. And I've owned as many as 120 Denny's. I have 85 restaurants open today. And I'm in 7 states across the country. So I get to experience a lot of different circumstances from state to state, especially during the COVID environment. And my hope is that we all get out of this with as little harm as possible. I know there's going to be carnage and some losses along the way, but I think if we all can find our way through this and help one another, there's a chance we're going to survive and let our businesses thrive forward.
Yeah, well, thank you for that. For the folks that want to hear the long version of your story, obviously we don't have time today. You just probably do a Google search, but Don, thank you for being here. Frank, tell us a little bit about yourself. I think most of the folks on the line probably have met you as we were talking about the conference circuit. But tell us about yourself and your career journey thus far.
Yeah, sure. First of all, great to be here and see old friends and connect again. It's pretty awesome. You know, I've been leading Tutor Doctor for the last dozen years or so. The company was founded a couple years prior to that. At the time, I was an executive with another franchise system, and the original founder was just really struggling getting this thing off the ground. He was an old friend of mine, so I started helping him to get it off the ground. And as I started helping him, it became pretty apparent pretty quickly that there was a really significant opportunity with Tutor Doctor. So I shifted a little bit and began talking to him about actually acquiring the business from him. I went to my then current boss, which was a gentleman who you all know, Dan Monahan, and we landed up acquiring the business from the founder, and we haven't really looked back since. We basically started it from scratch. There were a handful of franchisees which we helped out and then just started over, and that was back in 2008. And it's been an incredible journey so far. Learned tons. Met lots of incredible people who helped me a lot personally along the journey. Some of the folks on this call, in fact, played roles in that. And, you know, today we've got 345 franchisees that operate about 700 franchise territories, and we're currently operating in 15 different countries around the world. So it's been, as I said, a heck of a journey. But what's most exciting for me is that, you know, I look at where we are today and the changes that have taken place in the marketplace over the last number of months. It's been really tough, but it's created so much opportunity for us as an organization that we are incredibly excited about the future and the opportunities. And, you know, the size of our industry is projected to grow massively over the next 5 or 6 years. And we're just working really hard every day to carve out our share of that. So very exciting times for us at Tutor Doctor right now.
Beautiful. Yeah, and we'll dig into some of that. It's ironic how different things have turned on a dime in your business, as we'll get into some of that here in a bit. But Don, for you, your category in dine-in is obviously one of the hardest hit sectors. There's a lot of sectors that are hit very hard, but you're leading through some pretty tough times as folks have been mandated. And when you think about you know, at your scale, when you get a mandate from the governor that says, and you have 4 hours to prep for a shutdown that's supposed to last for 2 weeks, there are challenges galore. But just talk us through the roller coaster ride and really how you've navigated the last 5 months, I guess we're going on now.
You know, there's I guess it's interesting because you don't know what you don't know, so you don't know how long you're in this for. So originally I thought I was in this for 2 weeks, you know, close down for 2 weeks, slow the spread, and then reopen. So I made decisions based on that direction. And as we got into it, I clearly saw I was closed 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 4 months in Chicago. And so with every different state that I'm in, we had a different set of rules. And so what we had to do as a company is figure out how we were going to sustain. We had some stores where we could do delivery, some we could do takeout, some we could do takeout and delivery. We got to a point where some restaurants had capacity, some could only sit outside. I mean, for all of my restaurants, they all have a different set of rules. And so we had to learn, how do we stay in business in each individual different environment? How do we stay open if you can't have customers in your dining room? How do you stay open if you can't get employees to work? How do you stay open if there's no delivery in that market? It's a small town, it's rural, there's no drivers. You know, there were challenges every step along the way, and then not knowing from week to week when you could open, how many people you could schedule, who might come down with the virus and cause you to close the restaurant that you were just able to get open. I mean, the challenges are still ongoing today. You were dealing with the challenge of people getting paid more to stay home than get back to work. Yeah. You've got issues with people who live with parents who are sick or elderly, afraid to expose them. I mean, it's a new world of HR issues. It's a new world of having to learn how to please your customers in a different way, how to take care of your employees in a safe manner. We are learning a lot. And I think when you get groups together like us on this call here and on a lot of the various meetings I've participated in, when we all share our experience and our best practices and ideas, I think we help the next guy be able to do a little bit better of a job with their business. If you can get one takeaway that helps save you, or, you know, my position right now is, how long can I sustain if things stay exactly as they are? So every week, you know, we're strategizing, you know, what's the cash burn and how long do we have during COVID if things don't improve? And that's just the cold, ugly fact of it. Yeah, and we certainly do hope things improve. I think we could be turning a corner here. But Frank, for you, how has the last 5 months been? I think that, you know, you alluded to a lot of opportunity on the horizon for you, but I think to date it's probably just been head down and focus, and how do you help franchisees through this? But were you, I would presume that you were pretty much immediately shut down throughout all this, but how has the last 5 months been, and kind of where are you emerging at right now?
Yeah, you know, when this thing hit, we were stopped in our tracks, you know, like everyone else on the call. But, you know, we had and we took the opportunity to pivot our business from sending tutors into the home to help students to helping those students online. As I look back, thankfully we had an opportunity to do that, and it was, like everyone, it was a really stressful time. I was actually in Australia at the time, so it was the middle of the night over there, and I'm having emergency meetings with our team and whatnot over here as we just try to come to grips with what was actually going on and then to make some moves. But we did make moves and we acted very quickly. And we made that pivot from in-person to delivering our services online. As I look back at it, I think our franchisee community actually did an amazing job of just making that shift. It was emotionally charged. There was a lot of fear, but it would have been easy to kind of curl up into a little ball and say, I hope this passes really quickly. But no one did that. We made the shift to online. Thankfully, we had the structure and the technology in place already that allowed us to do that fairly seamlessly. And then, we got really focused on trying to figure out what the customer wanted and needed. If you remember back to the early days, there was kind of mass hysteria. Everyone's stuck at home, kids aren't going to school, parents are, working through Zoom and kids crawling in their laps and whatnot. We'd spent a lot of time talking to our customers to try get a sense of how we could help them in those circumstances. And then we put an innovation squad together to help us, rapidly prototype and deploy new offerings that would fit customer needs in the new circumstances. And that got us through the early days. We have continued to stay very close to our customers, talking to many of them, getting feedback, involving them in the work that we were doing internally. We had a couple of really important principles that we were adhering to. One of those was speed, and specifically speed to change. That was just a mantra of ours. And the other big mantra was collaboration. And there has been an incredible amount of collaboration. And even, today, the collaboration groups that are going on now with different franchisees in different areas, testing different offerings, have really allowed us to develop go-to-market offerings and strategies in a timely manner. And as a result, we're seeing our business come back. It's coming back quite strong. And now as we're heading in back to school, even though there is still a lot of uncertainty, there's a lot of confusion, there's a lot of fear, whereas, in the early days, Ryan, there was this paralysis around it. Today, there's still those same elements of place, but people are far more, action-oriented and actually getting prepared for different potential outcomes as governments continue to communicate whatever those local rules or guidelines are. So we're just moving really quickly, as quickly as possible, to make sure that we've got the offerings that will actually satisfy customers and most importantly help students through these times. The reality is we are also benefiting from some pent-up demand when things came to a stop, we really, we continued a lot with our existing business. Our new business coming in was where we took the biggest hit, and now we're starting to see those new customers come back and begin the programs with us, etc. But it does look very different today than it did a few months from now, and another month from now it's going to be different again. So it's just, the key is just having that flexibility, which is kind of in conflict with the whole franchising model. But these are the times we're in, and nature's, I don't know if it's natural, but there's stuff going on that's outside of our control, that desire and willingness to adapt and change quickly to meet the demand is, I think, what's going to continue to be critical for us over the next few months.
Frank, I thought about you immediately as this was going down, as I hear my friends talk about their experience homeschooling, and whether they have a wine bottle in one hand and the pencil and the chalk in the other.
Yeah.
Like, it's the level of, like, my dad used to use the term drive me to drink, but that's, and when I called you about this, I was like, I got to go to, because it's a thing where people would have always preferred it to be in person, which is much more cumbersome and much more difficult from an operation standpoint.
Logistics,
they're begging for it remotely, which is like, couldn't be a bigger market opportunity for everybody. My heart was warm, because I figured just in my little neighborhood, you could corral a whole bunch of people who know that this is not their A game. They got through the last 2 months of last year, which usually was doing a very poor job and knowing it was a poor job of educating. And then now looking down at the barrel, most schools are, my kid's starting a month, but they've told us for the first month they will be remote. I had a core of, my kid just went to high school, so I had a core of tutors from before that, but I need a whole, I need the whole set now. And my son knows it. He asked me for it. My son asked for it. He knows that he needs additional help. So anyway, I didn't mean to talk over you, but I appreciate it.
Can Lane be a tutor, Frank? Can you get Lane a job?
No.
You might need a job.
Hard no.
One of the things, welcome on my team anytime.
One of the things that I want to ask each of you, because maybe there's, like Don mentioned in the beginning, maybe there's a little nugget of wisdom that you can pass on, and at the end of the day, maybe there's not. But keeping track of all of these changing local mandates and all of the different stuff going on. Don, I think you're in 7 or 8 states. Frank, you're in multiple countries. And I imagine that both of you have a similar set of complexities, but probably nuanced and different when you're talking about different countries. But how do you keep track of all that? Do you just have a great team and awesome Excel spreadsheets and monitor the local websites? But is there anything there?
Well, we have a massive spreadsheet, and the interesting thing about it is, in the food service industry, it can change daily. Mm-hmm. So not only from state to state, but county to county, it's different. And so where we might be able to seat people in the dining rooms in some Chicago area stores, now we can only have outdoor dining. Some cities have a curfew. So what we do is we keep a massive spreadsheet. We update it every time there's a change. Denny's corporate does a pretty good job of notifying us of what they hear. But I'll tell you, you've really got to stay on top of it, because your customers are paying attention, and you want to do the safe and right thing. And at the end of the day, everybody's fighting for business the safe way. And so we follow all the guidelines the way that we're told to do. And, just like Frank, we've had to re-engineer our whole company to be able to make food more portable, to be able to work in a non-24/7 environment, to be able to deal with the various government authority rules in each and every city and county. So if you can't adapt and be flexible, and to Frank's point, in the franchise world, flexibility isn't a typical word that you use. You adhere to rules because you're typically a publicly traded company. You have to treat everybody the same way, and there are rules. And we've learned in the pandemic that if you're going to survive, you've got to throw the rule book out. You've got to be nimble, quick on your feet, able to make split decisions quickly, and do what that restaurant or business needs immediately, whether it's open, close.
I imagine it's got to be frustrating though, because when you look at, you mentioned Illinois, and you look at Chicago, and Chicago have a certain set of rules, and your locations out in rural, way outside of the city, have to kind of abide by these same rules. So I just imagine that spreadsheet's probably frustrating to look at. But
the spreadsheet's frustrating, and but what's even more frustrating for me as a restaurant operator is the unlevel playing field. And my heart goes out to people in California, New York, Florida, where their dining rooms are yet to open, because you can go into a Target and you can sit and have breakfast and coffee at Starbucks, but you can't go into a Denny's. So what is this doing for the small businessman who's invested his whole life savings in his business, his restaurant or coffee shop or whatever kind of business he has? He's out of business, but you've got the big box operators. They're essential. What makes one thing essential versus another? I think food is essential. And as long as we're practicing safe food handling and procedures, I don't think it's any different to go into a Starbucks and Target than it is to go into a Denny's. Actually, I think it's safer to go into a Denny's. We can spread our tables out further. We're in a bigger footprint. That's where it's hard. And I watch a lot of people really concerned about the inequities in the way we're being treated.
Well, because Dawn, like I said, we were talking about Illinois, and Illinois just passed a law or whatever. The governor has put a mandate down that now in restaurants, we're 20, I believe still it's 25% of the restaurant can be inside in the state of Illinois. But
Not
Illinois,
all counties, though.
Oh,
just
that's
changed. Just had to
and
close
they also, well, the hardest thing is what the governor just said, which someone told me about yesterday, that now even if you order a meal in Illinois, when the waiter or waitress comes over, you actually have to have a mask to order. That just passed yesterday.
Yeah, that's why the spreadsheet changes daily.
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be so hard.
So on top of, all of the lost sales that you have, you're spending so much money to get your business to where it can even survive in this new environment. So you take Illinois, for instance. A couple days ago, we were told in certain areas we can no longer have dining indoors, but we could have it outdoors. So you go out and you invest in tents and tables and extra labor to set them up, bring them in. But meanwhile, how much business can you do with the 25% capacity? I mean, there's no way you are going to pay your bills with 25% capacity. So there are challenges, and we're all trying to find new ways to do business to survive. In the food service industry, fast food, they're doing great. Pizza's doing great. But if you have a dining room, you're struggling.
Frank, anything on that last topic as you're managing, obviously the same in different ways, the same kind of playing field, but with the complexity of being global. Anything else that you would add to that?
I think so. You mentioned you just have a great team, and thankfully I've got a great team in place that's really helped us to navigate in this particular regard. We work closely with different councils in different countries, and for us, the approach we took was all about identifying what the biggest problems are to solve, and then coming up with solutions and action plans in order to solve those problems. So, for example, and the different problems in different parts of the world. Australia, for example, it was on kind of like a 2-week lag. Things didn't start to close down there till 2 weeks later, and it didn't quite close down like it did here. So different issues in different parts of the world and different opportunities. In the UK, the government came out with this massive support program of, like $170 billion that they were putting towards supplemental education. So we had to really put resources together to figure out how we can participate in that. We had an issue with recruitment of new tutors. So we had to come up with a solution to create a tutor share program where different offices could share from a pool of tutors, etc. So that was our approach to responding to the different things that were taking place in different parts of the world. It was really to kind of look at it through the lens of what is the specific problem we need to solve. And once identified, then we went out and solved it together with, and this is where that collaboration element came in, collaborating with local franchisees who were in it, feet off the ground, dealing with the issues head on. That was really helpful in terms of allowing us to test our solutions in different markets. And as soon as there was a learning, then to be able to take that learning and quickly communicate it out to the rest of that particular region, etc. So that's the approach that we took to deal with the different dynamics that were constantly changing in different areas. And we continue to do that today. In terms of, I've just never seen the collaboration. It's always been kind of a value of ours, but I've never seen collaboration like I'm seeing take place today as we're working, as I said, with different groups on different issues in different areas, and then closing that feedback loop so other people can take that learning and apply it in their business immediately.
Don, on the topic of focusing on the customers, making them feel safe, how do you inspire confidence with customers and make them feel comfortable coming in, dining with you? I think there's the obvious things like distancing the tables. You brought up a really excellent point that, the first thing I did when I was tested positive for COVID way back, one of the first people in Texas, the first thing I did was actually, when I was cleared to go out, I waited actually another week, but I went to the grocery store and I'm looking at people pick up produce, put it back on the counter. And that's got to be a lot more dangerous than sitting at a table that's distance away from another table far away. But is there anything that you can do to help inspire confidence? Are you seeing an uptick in maybe some areas that are in more rural places, but how do you inspire that confidence and make the customers feel comfortable?
Yeah, we are seeing an uptick in certain areas, but right now it's very interesting. Even when we see an uptick, there's really not a lot of predictability. So one day you might have good sales and the next it might be just nothing. And I think it's because people's traffic patterns have changed. There's a lot of people working from home now. They're not on the roads as much. So there's that factor. But one of the things that we do to inspire safety for our employees and our guests is that we are listening to them, their needs, what they want, and we're going to as much touchless as we possibly can. So we're looking at ways to where not only do we distance them, but we have as little of physical contact with things as possible. So, there's no longer salt and pepper shakers on a table, plastic menus. There's really nothing on a table anymore. As little as people can touch as possible. We're sanitizing everything on a very regular basis. The hand washing has been increased. We don't allow employees to come to work if they've been exposed to anyone, if they've had a temperature. We're asking all the right questions. There's nothing we want more than to get through this and in a safe way. So the great part about being part of a national brand is they're very on top of it, and they are doing everything in their power to share their learnings with us, make resources available so that if people have questions, we have a hotline that can be called so that they can get immediate answers of how to handle a solution. And, you know, we're holding everybody accountable, our vendors who walk through the door, our guests, and our employees.
You mentioned a very interesting thing there, Dawn. You know, you talked about the unpredictability, and compared to Frank, it's easier. You have your tutors. Ordering food has got to be so difficult at this point.
You know, and I'll tell you what else is difficult is there's a lot of product you can't even get right now. Some things, I mean, just getting the food sometimes is taking longer. You know, I don't know if anybody's tried to buy Fresca in the last 4 months, but I can't find it anywhere. And we have situations where we have distribution centers where it takes a little longer to get the product. So ordering has been a bit of a challenge because you don't know what you're going to do from week to week. And what was really interesting for us is we started to rebound about the 3rd week in June. Things started looking better for us. And then all the governors came out and right before the 4th of July weekend and said, stay home, hospitals are at capacity. That was in Texas. I think it was in a couple of other states. And we just saw across the brand, you know, numbers go back to almost when COVID hit. So there are challenges that set us back, and now we're starting to rebound a little bit from that. But we don't know what's coming, if there's a second wave coming. We don't know what kids going back to school is going to bring. There's a lot of uncertainty. Unlike Frank's industry, he can do it virtually. We have to touch our customer base. You know, we have to have physical contact. Unless we do delivery and takeout, and we're ramping that up. And, you know, there's a huge cost to that. I was looking at one of my statements yesterday, and it cost me $10,000 just in delivery fees. Now, when you're not doing that much sales and you're having to spend all your profit to deliver the food, I mean, it's a balancing act right now. And I know that we're going to get through it, and we're all getting a lot smarter real quick.
Yeah. I think the world needs moons over my hammy. Is that the?
They need a lot of them. Denny's burger, some Grand Slam family packs to go.
See, I'm a simple guy. I just like my ham and cheese omelet, my coffee black, and maybe some hash browns, and I'm good.
What was that last thing, Ryan? What do you order normally?
I just order a ham and cheese omelet. Very simple.
And you go there like 5 days a week.
I travel a lot, or used to, and I've been a lifelong, like I've always gone to dinner. It's America's Diner. I've always gone to
Diner, that's right.
Yeah, but Frank, so you're doing something interesting, and when we talked the other day, you talked about these pods. At Springboard, we have pods of our own, so maybe we can learn something from you and from what you've got going on there. But talk a little bit about, you know, some of the opportunities that are emerging for you, and maybe share a little bit about the pods idea and anything else that you're excited about.
Yeah, so, you know, we, again, needs have changed and behaviors have changed. And as a result, we've, again, have been looking at what do we need to do in order to fill those gaps that are there right now. And I mentioned that we have an innovation squad who is talking to customers and coming out with these ideas and helping to coordinate the testing, etc. And we've landed on a number of new service offerings. One of them is this pod tutoring that we're actually seeing come up in the media a ton all over the place. And it's really playing out quite well for us in that essentially where historically our service has been one-to-one, now we're looking at small groups. And the idea is that you know, a family who needs a lot of hours in terms of either catching up or filling in, gaps caused by COVID, etc. For a lot of families, cost is an issue because private tutoring, it's not cheap, and pod tutoring essentially allows us to bring 3-4 students together in a small cluster, that rather than tutoring one student, there can be 3 or 4 students that we're working with at any given time. And that's something that families have really embraced. We'll get a call from a family and they'll say, we need help working through some of the curriculum. And by the way, my son's friend Johnny, he'd like to join us, and can his brother Tim join as well? And that's kind of how the idea started. And we said, yeah, sure. And that, from a family's perspective, really reduced the per student cost really significantly, and it created a little bit of a little slice of normalcy in that, the student wasn't alone in the challenge, and they were working through things with some fellow students. And we're doing a lot of pod tutoring now throughout the company, which is great. But some other offerings that have emerged as a result of COVID, or homework clubs, which is again the same idea, where we do it rather in a small group than historically one-to-one. The other big opportunity for us is in the homeschooling market, where a lot of parents who are scared, who are uncertain, etc., are saying, maybe I just do this myself, but where do I start? And what resources do I have? And where can I get some help? And again, we've been, nicely positioned to step into that space to provide that support to moms and dads as they are planning the future out. So, innovation's been really important to us, and where we've had to make some really significant adjustments in that regard is more on the marketing side of the business, getting the word out about these things. Was and is challenging, because we used to do a lot of community events. We're all about being present in the local community, working with local schools and local businesses with our service. And of course, today we just can't do that. So how do we create those community opportunities? And we've actually done a lot of work on the marketing side of the business to create online communities to allow us to demonstrate support to, those drinking mom and dads that Elaine spoke about at the start of this, who are going out of their minds, not knowing what to do next. We've created online communities where they can come join these communities and get tools and resources and advice. In fact, we won an award for, I can't remember exactly what the award was, but for best resources available for students, which was great to see. But it gave them a place somewhere where they can just go and find some help and get some tools, etc. And providing those things. We weren't asking for business. We just wanted to be there for them. But a lot of those folks who are participating in that now, as we go back to school, are, there's been a relationship that's formed, and now they're coming to us and saying, okay, how can you help us with this transition back to school and help my kid catch up, etc. So lots of, at the core of it, it's all about innovation.
Yeah. We have our friend Shane Evans says, Don, maybe we do our dinner at Denny's. So I think you just got a sale maybe for a group a group dinner.
I love Shane Evans, my girl. Hashtag girl power, Shane.
Woohoo.
Let me ask you a question real fast. So I'm just curious, in the world of, and maybe just because I'm in Pennsylvania, masks are so controversial in terms of like the heated arguments people get in, sometimes mostly as patron to patron or people trying to do what they're supposed to do, whatever state law is, right? Anybody have any like interesting stories? I mean, Dawn, I can't imagine. Because I see people
I can't imagine. You know, that's why every day is a different adventure. And some days I like, well, I couldn't have imagined this one. So you literally, you have people out there who are passionate about their life for whatever reason they have. And you've got somebody who comes in and they're not wearing a mask. And a server will say, we can't, serve you without a mask. We're happy to give you one if you don't have one. And there are some people who take huge offense to that. They've hit people, they're angry. You have other people who embrace it. But, we all have to work together to make this go away. And we never know what somebody else is experiencing, why they don't want to be, without a mask or with a mask. And so we're dealing with all kinds of people from all different walks of life that have different beliefs. You have people who've had COVID who don't believe they're ever going to get it again, so they don't need to wear a mask because they're not going to expose someone. So everybody has their own beliefs about what they should be doing. And there are people who are just against what the government is suggesting they do. And that's a real hard thing for a lot of people. None of us are really in control of our life. We're being controlled by what our government officials are telling us. And there's people that are out there resisting that. And I see it in the restaurants. You have restaurants where you've got a family who's a party of 10, but you can only seat 6 at a table, and they get mad to be separated because they all live in the same house. And, you have to really train your staff how to delicately be able to deal with the nuances from guest to guest. And at the end of the day, I say, we really have to listen to what our guests want and what they need.
Yeah. One of the topics that I want to be sure that we touch on, I think Brad brought it up. We all huddled on a quick call on Monday while I was actually driving. But Brad asked you, Dawn, if I think we started talking about managing some of the banking relationships. And so, as you've navigated that during the pandemic, do you have any advice to others? And I think you mentioned a little resource that might be ending, I think, towards the end of September as well. But do you want to just talk about kind of the banking aspect? And are you actively looking, if the right opportunity comes along, would you snatch up another market? But speak a little bit about the banking side.
So, I'm heavily reliant on banking and lending because as a franchise, we have a franchise agreement that we have to adhere to rules. That is remodeling our restaurants, keeping them safe, up to date, and there's a lot of capital involved. And so I need to go to lenders from time to time to borrow money for remodels, or maybe I want to buy out an existing franchisee, build a restaurant, whatever it may be. And I've been in business 35 years and I have very good credit. Well, I've had a couple of opportunities come up during COVID when I've had the opportunity to purchase the real estate under the restaurant that I lease. And dealing with banks has been challenging because they don't even know how to underwrite in a COVID environment. They, just like I said, there's no predictability with me for sales. There's no predictability for them. So for the restaurant segment anyway, they're challenged with knowing where are we going to be in 6 or 12 months? Are we a good investment? Are we going to go bankrupt? So the banking industry is struggling with learning how to underwrite in COVID. They've also, put so much of their resources behind the PPP program, making those loans, that I think they've been, burdened with, all their people have been focused on that, and nobody was really out looking at transactions in the midst of all this. But as we start to come out of it, there's got to be a path forward so that people can borrow money, develop, and do business as usual. Now, on the flip side of that, we've had to, in the restaurant industry, reach out to our lenders and say we need help because we're not having sales. The government shut us down. We can't make our loan payments. We can't make our lease payments, and we need to renegotiate with you. And so, you know, I challenge everybody out there who has had trouble with a lender or a landlord to really be proactive, to be transparent and tell them what's going on and work to find a solution instead of just not paying them or being late. Because they have been, I will say this, the landlords and the lenders have been surprisingly good to work with. They've understood what the restaurant industry has been going through. But there comes a point in time, and we're almost at 6 months now, where at some point, landlords have to start to get paid and lenders need to get their loan payments. And we have to have some form of strategy to get through this. And, you know, you hear on some stations, you know, I'll close the country down again if I have to. And we hear on other stations, we can't close the country down. And so there's so much confusion and mixed emotion out there, and people are scared. And so everybody's kind of paralyzed at the moment as to what to do. It's like, let's not do anything until January. And the other situation that lenders are faced with is, because we don't know when people will be traveling, when there will be occasions for people to be out and about and spending, they don't know the reliability of their customers anymore.
Yeah. One thing I also want to ask both of you, obviously, Dawn, you know, you've lived through, and all of us here have lived through 2001. We've lived through 2008. This is obviously something that nobody's experienced before, but how do you maintain the positive mental attitude, and how do you keep yourself personally motivated, maybe even, you know, just blocking off time where you're not focused on or thinking about work? But is there anything that each of you do or have found valuable from a personal standpoint just to keep your own morale up as you're leading the teams? Has that been something that's important to you and something that you've had to focus on?
Ryan, it must have been really tough in 2001 to decide what you're going to eat at lunch in junior high.
Yeah, I think I was in seventh grade just to have. That was actually really good, Brad. That was spot on. But
I hope your assets didn't take too big a nosedive. Like your 10 speed wasn't worth $80 than it was on eBay the week before.
In true Ryan Hicks fashion, I actually had a business even way back then. I had a lawn business that grew quite large, actually. And
that's a pun there too. The grass grew quite large.
Yeah, to answer your question, Ryan, I think that, you know, we can I think as entrepreneurs, we are people that are hardworking, we think forward, we strive to be successful. And I think when something like a pandemic hits, you just stand up and you say, okay, what do I have to do? I'm a survivor and I'm going to survive this, and I'm not going to go down without giving it my best fight ever. And I think when you lead your team that way and they know that you're in it, in the trenches with them, doing all that's in your power to save their job, to save that business, their morale goes up as well too. I mean, I don't want to instill doom in my team's minds, but I make it clear to them that we're all in this together and that we can get through this, and it's for a limited amount of time. We don't know what that time is, but it's not going to do any of us any good to bury our head in the sand. I'm not going to say I didn't have a good cry every now and then, but we have to get through it because the alternative is much worse. We can either, you know, fight through it, be positive, or be over. And I choose to fight for it.
Well said.
Yeah, you know, we made a decision that we were going to lead with optimism. And we consistently reminded ourselves and the entire community that there will be an end to this. We will get through it. And we wanted to really put our focus on making sure that when we did come out the other side of it, that we actually came out much stronger as an organization. And we've kept our focus on that throughout the pandemic, and we haven't really strayed from that message. And I think for us, the key has been, you know, ongoing communication, with all stakeholders, making sure that, and to be honest, we've actually scaled back the communication a little bit because, we were sending out daily communications and daily updates. And when there's not much new happening in the early stages, things were changing. So we just scaled that back to, twice a week and now once a week, etc. So just paying attention to those things. We were having, daily meetings in the heat of the crisis, daily focus meetings to make sure that we were staying on task. We've now scaled those back as well, but we're fully prepared to scale them back up. And we talk about this being prepared for a potential wave 2. But always in our mind is making sure we come out of this stronger than we were going into this. And I really feel in many ways that we are stronger. We're tougher, we're leaner, we're focused. The communication level that's taking place. So it's been super hard, but it's tested our mettle, and just collectively as a group, we know that we've got metal. We're made of metal, and that we will get out of this and enjoy all this hard work that we're getting. The one other point that I want to make that I think's quite important because it was quite useful. One of our leaders pulled out an old notebook back from 2008, the last crisis, and we went through some of the notes from that, what was going on there, and that was kind of wow, like that someone had actually documented all the things that they did then. So that's something that we're trying to do now, making sure that we're taking notes and whatnot, because we'll come out of this, but at some point, at some time, there will be another crisis, and we just want to be better prepared for that crisis. So what can we learn from this is a real opportunity for us next time around. So I just wanted to throw that in there because that's something, a little point that actually made a difference.
And I think the crisis that we're all in, we are all going to get some gifts from this and some learnings, and we are going to be leaner. We're going to operate differently, and we're going to find new and innovative ways to do business and be more profitable. And we're going to weed out the things that didn't work. And sometimes when you're not in a live or die situation, you kind of hold on to things that you maybe shouldn't hold on to, that you should have let go a long time ago because you love that restaurant like it was your child. But at the end of the day, it brings the rest of the ship down. So you have to make hard decisions. And I think that in COVID, we're all having to make those hard decisions that will, in the long run, make us stronger. Cut the waste, the dead weight.
Well said. We have a comment as we're going to move to close here because we're right at the top of the hour. Meilani down in Austin, Texas. Get back to Dallas soon, Meilani. I'd love to see you. But she says, love this panel, and she has her Springboard shirt on.
So, all right. If I had a Springboard shirt, I'd be wearing it today.
Lane, we got a lot of pressure to come up with good ideas.
Take care of that.
Well, hey, one question that we want to end on, and this is a question that Lane has consistently asked, which is really neat because we're going to, I think they're working on putting a compilation together. But what advice do you have to other operators that are listening today and that will listen online and also emerging franchisors? What advice do each of you guys have if you want to get on a quick 10, 20, 30-second soapbox and just give advice to other entrepreneurs and operators in the audience there? We'll start with you, Frank.
So I think, as I think about what's really worked well for us through this, just having a couple of themes or principles that, you embrace throughout and keep hitting that message. That was really useful to us. And, I've mentioned speed to change. I've mentioned collaboration. Those are things that, we embrace, but we continue to communicate. And I think that had a very positive effect on our community in terms of them coming along with us as we were making those changes very quickly. So I would say that would be what I would say to folks.
Thank you,
For us,
Don.
communication has been paramount. Every step along the way, Denny's has communicated with us. We've communicated to our restaurants, making people feel safe and secure, and really giving our best ideas to how to survive the various challenges, no matter what department of the business you're in, whether it's legal, lending, real estate, operations, food safety, marketing, human resources, everybody joining together to share their best ideas to help everybody in our brands get through it. And I think what has been most helpful for me as a franchisee, having a large franchisor as my boss really, is their ability to be flexible with us in this crisis and not hold us to things that were so important prior to COVID, to giving us the autonomy to run our business the way we feel we need to run it to survive.
That shows the importance of franchising, and franchisors, franchisees, suppliers are all in this together, and the size helps that, and the more importantly, franchisors and the franchisees worked in conjunction together, and the International Franchise Association was able to put franchisors and franchisees together for best practices.
And I'll tell you, I would hate to be not a franchise right now. I would feel like I was quite alone, and that's where, I think for us that, the restaurant associations and the various business associations really come in and help, but it's been comforting to me to know I have the help of a major brand behind me.
It's a great point, Brad, in terms of taking advantage of things like this that you guys are doing. I just really appreciate it as a franchisor, just having a place to go to. To Dawn's point, knowing that I'm not in it alone, and that there's some really smart people making some really big decisions, and I can learn from those decisions. And we, as an organization, really leaned into the resources in a significant way, so that we could learn and apply very rapidly. So I just think that's a great point.
It is. Well, this has really been great. We don't want to keep you guys. It's been, Dawn, I know that desk has never been empty before this webinar.
It looks very different the other day.
Someone else has.
I will tell you this. Desk is cleaner since COVID than pre-COVID, because I'm usually on the road every other week. And so now I'm not quite as behind and staying a little more caught up, but there's new issues to deal with.
All right. Well, we love you guys. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Favorite members.
This was fun. Thanks, guys.
Talk to you later.
Bye.
Thanks.